From the 9/11 Commission. It's an edit from 9/11 Commission. Panelist Tim Roemer is interviewing two FBI agents, one of them from Phoenix, one of them is from Minneapolis. The agent from Phoenix is Ken Williams. And the other one, I believe, is either Dave Frasca or Robert Bowman. I'm not too sure who it is really, but they're both hidden behind a partition to protect their identity. So here we go.
Mr. Roemer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to first of all thank and also commend particularly the agents from Phoenix and Minneapolis. As we look back on the horrors of September 11th, we find that going back to Minneapolis and Phoenix, there were in fact field agents out there that found clues that could have brought more attention to these matters, that pieced together important ingredients and evidence in the case that may significantly help us down the line. So I want to thank you for your hard work and your successful work in some ways.
What he was talking about there is that Minneapolis, the FBI headquarters there, they had arrested and detained two individuals who were acting suspicious regarding a flight training school in Minneapolis, Zacharias Moussaoui and Hussein Alatas. They were arrested at a hotel by an agent, a lead agent, Harry Samet. And regarding that story, they tried to get a FISA warrant because they were foreign nationals and they are not, they don't, what they needed was a FISA warrant, a foreign warrant regarding their personal belongings, because Moussaoui had a laptop and they couldn't search the hotel room without a warrant, which was a FISA warrant, foreign intelligence warrant. So that went to the radical fundamentalist unit in Minneapolis, and there was an argument about the definition met regarding whether it was a criminal warrant or an investigative warrant. So there was a lot of wrangling or haggling about definitions of certain words that were in the application, which had to be approved by the radical fundamentalist unit. With Phoenix, there was an agent there, which we're going to talk about, regarding Ken Williams, in which Ken Williams, the lead agent there, wrote a memo called the Phoenix Memo, which was basically an informant that he had, Henry Ellen, who is a Muslim convert, who basically was friendly to the Islamic community and warned him about these people that were training in Scottsdale, Arizona, at flight schools who had connections with terrorism, not Al-Qaeda or Bin Laden, but another terrorist group. And so he wrote this memo, and it was released to certain individuals, which was their individuals were blacked out on the memo itself, but it went to people like Robert Mueller, it went to the CIA's Alex Station, it went to the counterterrorism unit, it went to New York and John O'Neill, it went to Minneapolis, it went to I can't remember, but their names are redacted, but hardly anyone read it. And nobody did any investigation about these suspicious terrorism links training at flight schools. And Arizona is considered #1 in the country regarding flight training schools. They have the most.
Given your
So that's what Roemer was referring
experience
to.
in the field, given your assessment of the threat, given your knowledge of where Al-Qaeda may operate successfully in this country, first of all, the Phoenix agent, how likely is it that we're going to be hit again? And when do you think that may take place?
Well, this would be purely speculative.
That's all
on
I'm
my part.
asking.
I believe that, first of all, the watershed event for the international terrorism community took place on February 26,
Ken Williams.
1993. And I wish we had these type of hearings back then to address that threat, because I believe that that was the first page of a new chapter in American history. I believe that the enemy is here. is ingrained in our communities and is willing to strike again. I couldn't tell you when. I believe that we are making some headway and having some success with disrupting his activities in the country, as is evidenced, what took place a couple days ago in Buffalo and elsewhere around the country. But to give you a time frame,
Scale of 1 to 10.
Okay, what he was talking about with Buffalo, if you missed it, or if you heard it and don't understand, that's called the Lackawanna 6 case about these 6 Arab males that were filming at the Walt. I think they went to Disney and they were filming around and stuff like that. They were talking about bombing certain sensitive targets in the United States, whether they were serious or not. According to them, the FBI basically set them up, and it was a very suspicious case. And I don't know too much of the details on that. It was so long ago. I believe that the photos they took of them at a shooting range was developed by this someone at CBS or somebody who was in charge of getting the photographs from the camera, and they warned the FBI, and the FBI got involved, and they were investigating them. And then they had this informant recording them saying certain things, but it was like flimsy, and they all got like lengthy certain sentences on it. But that case really had a lot of questions and answers, to tell you the truth. Now that I'm trying to remember it, in regards to intelligence, when will be the next attack? Look, come on. I don't know how many videos I have to make here and how much documents I have to show for you, the public. I mean, this is nothing new here, right? They had a lot of intelligence regarding pre-9/11, warnings up the yin yang, warnings that weren't shared, information that wasn't shared deliberately, especially the CIA and the NSA. Regarding the FBI, hey, do I have to name the names again? Robert Wright Jr. in Chicago, Ken Williams here in Phoenix, Harry Salmon in Minneapolis, Colleen Rowley in Minneapolis, Sibel Edmonds, who was an FBI translator, Doug Miller, Mark Rossini at Alex Station. Good God's sakes, man. All these FBI agents tried to tell the United States, giving them warnings about, hey, we have a high number of suspicious subjects, some of them Al-Qaeda inside the United States. They're training at flight schools, and nobody listened, or they just ignored them altogether. Regarding 1996 Pajinka plot, that information about the plot and about sleeper cells inside the United States wanting to hijack planes, that was known to the FBI in 96, 5 years prior to 9/11. What did the FBI do with it? Nothing. Blame Louis Freeh. He was the director at the time. So yeah, even if they knew, for example, let's just say that they knew that there was going to be an attack, would there be any way to stop it regarding their superiors? It's the bureaucracy we have to be focusing on, not the foot soldiers for the FBI,
And Phoenix agent,
because that's who's impeding these investigations.
how likely do you think a hit from some of these terrorist groups might be? 10 being very likely.
I would say it would be low right now. I would say 1, because of our offensive efforts post 9/11.
That's in country or from outside?
I can only speak for inside the country.
Inside the
That's-
Right, because you know what? He's right, because when was the last time we were attacked? We weren't. I mean, on a scale like that anyway. I mean, we've had, an Islamic State, the Islamic State basically doing that shooting in San Bernardino. I don't think anyone died from that. We had a guy who tried to run over some people at Times Square. I think one person died from that. We have one guy in the subway in New York. He blew himself up. He didn't even die from it. So yeah, I mean, in terms of an international operation, we have more to worry about domestic violence than we do international violence from any foreign Arab international organization. And there isn't any right now, as we speak, any threatening international terrorist organization, Arab anyway, right now.
Minneapolis agent?
Sir, I'm unfortunately not prepared to answer your question because circumstances concerning my assignment have changed significantly since my involvement in this case. I don't have current information or access to the current information because of my present assignment, and for me to speculate would be completely out of scope.
I appreciate your honesty, and again, I appreciate the hard work that you did prior to this.
Right, because listen, you know, when the FBI has a center called the International Terrorism Operations Center, right? Okay, this is a center, and they also have they have a radical fundamentalist unit, and they have an Osama bin Laden unit, right? National headquarters, Washington D.C. Okay, the International Terrorism Operations Center, which collects EC cables, electronic cables, right, from all around the country. You know, every single major city in the United States has an FBI office with its headquarters in Washington, D.C. Now, they collect data all the time. And there's a lot of data. That's a lot. I mean, I don't know how many FBI agents there are on there. I think there are tens of thousands. But how many in the International Terrorism Operations Center or in the Radical Fundamentalist Unit or in the Osama bin Laden unit? In the mid-90s, it wasn't very high. But after 1998, yeah, it started gaining more traction because of the embassy bombings in East Africa. And so, I mean, now the units are large, but they're probably going to lose steam because, you know, the funding always goes from one area to another regarding, you know, what's the more important issue. And probably right now, international terrorism isn't very high on the list.
Coming back to the field.
Right now, anyway.
The Phoenix agent, I want to say that from our testimony from Eleanor Hill, she quotes a New York FBI personnel who found your Phoenix memo, quote, speculative, but not necessarily significant, unquote.
You know, that's amazing when you think about it, right? That's the lead premier office in regards to international terrorism, especially with Al-Qaeda, right? It's John O'Neill, it's the I-49 unit, that's the counterterrorism unit, the best in the country, right? And in the Phoenix memo, yeah, it doesn't refer to Al-Qaeda, but the warning is there. And the main ethos of the cable is that, hey, we have people, suspicious terrorists and terrorist organizations that are inside Phoenix, especially Scottsdale, right, that are training at flight schools. Now, that shouldn't be new because they should be already well aware about the Pachinko plot. That information went to Louis Freeh, the director. And did he not share the information? I mean, they arrested Ramzi Youssef, who's part of the Pachinko plot. They arrested Abdul Hakim Rad and interrogated him. New York did anyway, both men. They interrogated Wali Khan Amin Shah. I mean, they even went and interviewed Mohammed Jamal bin Mohammed Khalifa, who's the brother-in-law of Osama bin Laden in the Philippines. And to say that the memo is speculative, I mean, yeah, I would take credence with that. That's ridiculous. I wonder who said that.
On the opposite hand, find it significant because it was speculative. You almost laid out the case for a strategic analyst that piecing together different threat assessments and different clues coming in, that this might well happen at some point in the future, but that it could be happening in other places in the country. We're told that 5 intelligence research specialists, strategic analysts, were transferred from the analytical unit to the operational unit. And in the opinion of one interviewee in the strategic analytical capability of the FBI against Al-Qaeda, that it was gutted, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment on the state of the strategic analysts prior to 9/11?
I don't have any information concerning what took place at headquarters in terms of the downsizing and transferring of people, but as I testified earlier, we in the field, I in particular, I can speak to myself, saw a decreased amount of analytical material that came out of headquarters that could assist somebody like myself in Arizona.
I hope
Here is the problem, because I've interviewed Ken Williams on my podcast, The Darkened Hour, right? Go to that interview because he talks about why certain people from the analytical team was transferred to domestic crimes, including Ken Williams. In fact, when Ken Williams was right in the middle of investigating Subra, the person who is the head of the memo, he's the guy who was involved, and I forgot his full name, but his name was Subra. And he was belonging to some terrorist group. And when Ken Williams went to interview him, and Ken Williams said he had a picture of Osama bin Laden in his house, he was talking about the United States need to be attacked like they did years ago regarding a plane crashing into New York or something like that. Yeah, he said, "Oh my God, we need to investigate this guy. He's dangerous." And right after that, Ken Williams was pulled, and he went and investigated an arson, a series of arsons that were happening in I want to say it was it Phoenix? I think it was Phoenix. And so by the time he got back to the, which was late 2001, all throughout the 1999, the year 2000, he basically missed out on. And it wasn't the first time. I mean, they transferred a lot of these people because they don't consider Arab terrorism to be important because, one, they want to protect their interests in Saudi Arabia, and two, they don't want to offend Arabs because during that time they were trying to repair relations with Saudi Arabia. And also, too, we basically had no terrorism threats inside the United States at the time. And so they didn't consider counterterrorism really that important. And so they focused on other areas, which basically, gave the people that were inside the United States a lot of leeway to act out in the open, where they wouldn't have
that we're dealing
if they had
with that,
had them
both from a
monitoring.
training and a resource capability now, looking into the future as well, too. Finally, FBI headquarters agent, you said in response to a question from Mr. Kramer that your name was on the Phoenix memo to headquarters, but you did not recall seeing it. Is that correct?
That's accurate. I do not believe I ever saw that communication. In fact, I think your investigators that this committee has investigated this matter has confirmed that the best they could.
I'm not so much going to try to grill you on whether or not you recall seeing it, not reading it, or passing it on. What you said afterwards concerns me about the system a little bit more. You said that you still do not see some things with your name on it. Sometimes that could amount into the hundreds of memos or documents going through FBI headquarters.
That doesn't.
So if there is another Phoenix-type memo coming through, you may not see it. And maybe there are 3 or 4 other names on that memo, but I want to be reassured that 3 or 4 of those people, including you, would see it this time and be able to act on it. Are we going to fix the system so that those 4 or 5 names or 6 names in this instance, how many were on it, that they are seeing it, reading
It was 10.
and responding to the field offices?
That's a fix that comes with technology and resources.
So it's not fixed.
It is not fixed. Nor to say, though, and I think this has to be clear, is that nor do I need to see everything on it. I can't, as an individual, I cannot possibly see and consume every piece of paper. Unfortunately, there's a culture in the FBI where names go on attention lines. That's not necessarily necessary. I think it needs to be focused on program responsibilities or cases and field division responsibilities. Just because of my position, they tend to put my name on that communication. I myself do not necessarily need to see it, nor could I possibly take on all of those pieces of communication with my name on it.
I would just hope they'd take your name off it, and the people that would have their name on it would be reading it and responding.
Yeah, now look, this is important. That's the end of the video, but still, let me talk about this for a little bit. The attention line means that it's specifically going to these same people, to these people for a reason, right? Now, I think it was 10 people on that attention line in the Phoenix memo, 8 or 10 people, but they all have something in common. It's all counterterrorism, right? It's relating to a specific incident or information that could be valuable to these people, right? And that's something that whoever this agent was, whether it's Dave Frasco or Robert Bowman, they should have just picked on it right away. Oh, it was going to John O'Neill. Oh, this is going to Robin Mueller, the director. Oh, this is going to blah, blah, blah. In the FBI, all the lead agents that have, the same heading or same department, which is counterterrorism, right? And at that time in 2001, I mean, God's sakes, especially it's July 10th, 2001 is when the memo was sent. That's the date on the memo. Now, at that time, enormous, I mean, even global foreign intelligence was warning about something big happening inside the United States. It's going to involve bin Laden, it's going to involve Al Qaeda. And it's going to involve the hijacking of planes, most likely. And so any type of information would have been helpful. But if they're not reading it, that means they have plausible deniability, which is basically, oh, if I didn't read the memo, I can't be blamed for what was missed in the memo, whether it was good information or bad information or no information at all. But if I just didn't read it, then I always have that out. Because if whoever this was, if they read the memo and didn't act on it, well, Roemer could just say, oh, what's your excuse then, right? And then he has to make a bigger excuse. And that's the reason why all these bureaucrats in the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, they don't want to know certain things. Hey, listen, we don't want to know. If we didn't see it, we don't know about it. And, we'll keep it like that. And so they have that plausible deniability. Now, in November of 2004, the FBI's Inspector General wrote a review of the FBI's handling of intelligence information prior to September 11th attacks, in which Chapter 3 focuses on the FBI's handling of the Phoenix electronic communications and other information relating to the use of airplanes in terrorist attacks. And I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share the screen with you so we can read together this very important report. And I'm going to scroll on down to the Phoenix EC, right? So we'll read together. The Phoenix EC was dated July 10th, 2001. It was addressed to the Counterterrorism Division, FBI headquarters, and to the New York Division. The precedence line on the EC was marked routine. Now, this is something that whoever that agent was talking about routine. However, routine information is not always read, right? Now, the EC stated that there was an inordinate number of individuals of investigative interest who was attending or had attended civil aviation universities and colleges in Arizona. Now, guess who studied at the University of Arizona in 1992? The alleged hijacker of American Airlines 77, Hani Hanjour. And he was, I believe it was electronic engineering. That was his major. Information on individuals. As the basis for his concerns, Williams summarized in the electronic cable, EC, the results of 4 Phoenix intelligence investigations of 4 subjects who we will call subject 1, 2, 3, and 4. The other persons of investigative interest were described as 7 associates of subject number 1, and that's Subra. Zachariah Subra, I think that was his name. In which Williams identified the connections of these individuals to aviation as follows. Subject 1 was an aeronautical engineering student at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott. One took classes at Cochise College in Douglas, Arizona, and late 1990s to obtain an FAA certificate, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And they had connections to foreign terrorism. Subject 1, which is Zachariah Subra, was designated by Williams as a 199M or IT other matter. Williams told the OIG, the Office of Inspector General, that he had opened the subject number 1 case under the designation after obtaining material in subject number 1's garbage relating to Ibn Khattab, who Williams believed had a connection to bin Laden. And he'd be right. Ibn Khattab was a Chechen leader who was fighting against the Soviets in Chechnya. And that's what it was talking about here. And that subject number 1 was involved in the Al-Mujroon, group. The Al Madroon is a terrorist, a labeled terrorist group that has connections to Ibn Khattab, who has connections to bin Laden, right? So that's what this was talking about. And that's the case of it, right? So in subject number 2, who was arrested in June of 2001 in Bahrain and had admitted to being a member of Al-Qaeda and planning an operation to bomb the U.S. Embassy and military forces in Saudi Arabia. Subject number 3 had a connection to an African Islamic extremist activity cell who had an association with Ahmed Wassam, who was arrested for his participation and involvement with the Millennium bombing plot in January of 2001. And the recommendations regarding the electronic cable in the Phoenix Memo, the FBI field offices and these type of schools in the area should establish appropriate liaison with the schools. FBI headquarters should discuss this matter with other elements of the U.S. intelligence community and task the community for any information that supports Phoenix suspicions. Guess what? And I'm not going to go into all this. Guess what? None of this was read. None of this was given attention. In fact, George Bush didn't know about this cable until 2002. Robert Mueller didn't read this cable, I think, until 10 days after September 11, 2001. Nobody read the cable. And so Ken Williams' warnings were ignored. And that's what Roemer really should have, well, I guess he probably didn't know at the time, because that's why we have these investigations in the first place, but they're incomplete rather than just a cover-up. It is a cover-up, but it's also incomplete because a lot of these people aren't privy to other information that we're privy to now here in 2021. And so I think I'll end it there. I spoke a lot, and hopefully it was informative for you.